Lupin is the first corporate on the program today. The stock surged more than 60% in 2024 so far. We're now joined by Mr. Ramesh Swaminathan, ED and Global CFO at Lupin, to talk about business and some of the developments. Mr. Swaminathan, good morning. First of all, apologies. Sorry to have kept you waiting with markets what they are. So, let's start talking about the latest, right, which is the Mybetriq Jynarque. Now, we understand that the US Court of Appeals, the judgment has gone against generic companies like Lupin and Zydus. Could you tell us what is the status of the litigation? Are you still selling this drug right now in the US as we speak? What is your expectation about how much you will make from this in FY25 and FY26?
Firstly, let me begin by thanking you for having us on. Regarding Mybetriq, the first thing that I would like to state is that it's actually sub judice, so I wouldn't like to delve on it for too long. But I would say that we are indeed selling this drug, and we are pretty confident about our case. And from that perspective, we continue to sell it.
Okay. This is still in the courts right now. So I understand you don't want to go too much into detail. But the Court of Appeals decision went against generics, right? So will you have to stop selling it at some point, or
It didn't go against the generics, and it got referred back to the same bench. So for the same trial courts. So it is not. I wouldn't say it is actually against generics at all.
Okay. Just one last. I won't press you beyond that. Estimates are that in FY25 you'll make between 120 and 180 million dollars. Is that on track? Or are those wildly off those estimates?
It'd be an unfair question to ask, because essentially we never delve into product-wise details. Suffice to say that we are doing pretty well in the product also.
Okay. Morning, sir. If you could just give us a status on another drug. I think the kidney drug, Jynarque. Sorry if I'm getting the pronunciation wrong, because we understand the innovator of the drug, Otsuka, has filed an appeal against a verdict that would have otherwise favored companies like Lupin. So what's the status here? Is Lupin going to launch the drug as you had planned in 2025? Or is there going to be a delay? Or would you look at an at-risk launch?
Just speaking about Tendulkar, the fact of the matter is you've actually won that case, and we are pretty confident about actually launching it. It is a pretty large drug. It's a REMS product, and from that perspective, I would expect it to be limited. It would continue for some time from our perspective, and very, very upbeat about that particular product for the next year.
So when are you launching it, sir?
It'll be possibly in April 25, next year.
And will this be an at-risk launch?
No, Tendulkar isn't an at-risk launch.
Okay.
Mr. Swaminathan, hi, sir. Morning. Now, a slightly broader question. How you're seeing the US business overall sort of move along, and some of your, of course, marquee names like Albuterol, Spiriva, Jynarque, etc. So what is the prognosis going forward? And I just want to understand whether politics at all impacts business in any way when it comes to your US operations. Does it really matter to you who comes to power? And also tell us, because it's a little difficult to track all the minute details. For instance, our previous guest was just highlighting that in general, one camp is looking at a big hike in corporate taxes, while Mr. Trump obviously wants them lower. But on the healthcare side, in terms of policies, could there be any significant impact on generic company operations like yourselves?
Too many questions in the same breath. Let me take the first part of the question regarding how well we are doing. We continue to see pretty good buoyancy on the top line in America. So the recent launches, which includes, of course, our respiratory portfolio, Albuterol, and then Spiriva, continue to do pretty well. We've also bought into a few brands out there, Zopinex, Brovana. They also continue to do pretty well. In a general sense, we've also been launching a host of other products, OSD and the like. So if you look at, for example, we had Jynarque last year. This year we had, we had quite a few other products. And this year, for example, we are looking at, some ophthalmic products as well. Next year, we're looking at Tendulkar. And of course, when you speak about, in fact, the entire respiratory portfolio, And we are actually working on the entire range of products in that portfolio. And over the next 5 years, we'll be launching a number of products. Apart from that, we also have a number of products on the injectables front also. So from our perspective, we are still pretty bullish about the overall prospects for America. And that would be true with, in fact, the other markets as well. But reverting back to your question about the political situation out there, we believe that affordable medicine is certainly going to be, the case, irrespective of whichever party is in power. So be it the Republicans or is it going to be Democrats, I don't think we're going to be impacted at all. There's of course the IRA and other acts, regulations which might actually impact the ethical companies, not so much the generic companies, because we are all about affordable medicine, and that would not impact us so much.
So, sir, the estimates on the street right now, the analysts are working with estimates of, say, $220 to $230 billion of a quarterly run rate for your US business. Are they fair estimates or are they conservative? Can you actually do better than that? I'm not asking for this quarter, but generally that's the assumption for the next couple of quarters.
I would say that given the pipeline that we have and given the fact that the respiratory products will continue because they're a lot more sticky, I would say the run rate that we saw last quarter would certainly continue in the future as well. So 200, 220, 225 would certainly be the range for the next few quarters.
And around 21% in margins for 25 overall?
Last year, last quarter, for example, we did 23, but we also kind of guided that it could perhaps turn out to be a little lower in the quarters to come because the fact that last quarter, the overall R&D spends were a tad lower than normal. So given that we were guided for about 20.5 percentage points, very confident that we would actually be on track to achieve more than that.
Okay. You'd also indicated that you could look to spin off some adjacencies like OTC, diagnostics, digital, etc., and get in outside investors. Any movement on that?
So let me put it this way. A capital allocation policy has been predicated on what the board really wants. And when I speak about, in fact, the adjacencies, diagnostics, digital, all of this are very important to us. But having said that, these are not going to be the dominant themes. From that perspective, there is actually the upper threshold in terms of investments that have been kind of prescribed by the board also. We will not be exceeding that. So we already spun it off into subsidiary companies and potentially be looking at involving private equity houses or other passive partners to partner in the journey so that they kind of spin on their own axis. So the idea is, of course, to benefit from these businesses without actually losing sight of the fact that our capital allocation policies should not be kind of dislodged. So it's basically that. So we are confident that when they reach critical mass from our overall size perspective, we should be in a position to kind of place it with outsiders.
Okay, just a quick word. I think the US FDA inspected and issued 3 observations for your Pithampur Unit 1. What's the nature of the observations and what's the status of the facility now?
We are, as I said, so insofar as this facility is concerned, of course, it did go through a recent, the observations are, from our perspective, quite manageable. And we look forward to getting, this sorted out, and with our responses in the immediate future.
Okay, all right. So we'll leave it on that note. Good having you on the show today. Thank you very much for all the perspective and some sense on how the US business is shaping up. Thanks for joining in.